Hi, welcome back to another episode of Project Stargate. I'm your host, Mark Brenner, and I have with me today my co-host and historical advisor, Greg Ship. What's up, Greg?
Not much. Mark, how are you today?
Better than I deserve, man. Better than I deserve. Um, we got a very fun podcast tonight, a very fun episode, and we have actually today we're going to have a special guest, another member of the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. His name is John Pearson, so we're really excited to have him with us today. But before we get into that, there's a lot of stuff. There's some stuff we need to go over, isn't there?
That's correct.
So, what you've been up to, first of all? What's going on in your little private world?
Private wise, I don't know if I want to announce later now, but I think I'll just get over with now. So, I have decided to return to school, and I am planning on taking a welding professional certification course with my local community college.
Oh wow!
Absolutely.
They make decent money, man. You might even be able to go into your own business and like do more things and stuff in the future, maybe with a project or something else entirely.
Oh yeah, it's a really good career. I've spoken to a few people in my own personal circles that are welders, and they swear by it. It's a really good skill, and it might also be useful not just for a job, but also for like my own personal side projects, as I'm also into living history as well.
That you are, your history is just part of your soul, pretty much. I don't know how many times, you're back in the day when you'd come over and hang out with me, and I was living with my mom and dad at the time, the single post-divorce guy living with his parents for a few years, and you'd come over to the house. Actually, I remember that was the house we had those UFO sightings.
Yes, I
Uh,
remember those.
yes, across the street uh, from the house over by the clubhouse in the little walkway, and you
Right.
got that lake. Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
but anyway,
Was that in Cumming, right?
yeah, that was in Cumming. That was in Cumming, Georgia, Forsyth County. A lot of UFO sightings out there. I've had a ton of UFO. And my mom and dad had a UFO sighting with me out there one time,
Mhm.
and actually they saw it first, which is kind of interesting, because that's just something that you just don't really talk about. They're, hey, there's a UFO outside. I don't know if I've told the story on here or not, but if I might have to tell the story if I have it. I'll have to go back and look at the archives, and if not, I'll just tell the story on sometime here on the show. You dig?
I dig.
Um, Special announcements. I've got two announcements actually to make, two remarkable announcements. So we've been talking a while, with members of the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. Mega kudos, by the way. Mega, mega, mega kudos to the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade, Angie Williamson, Johnny Two Bear, Captain Joe, and our guest tonight, John Pearson. Just all of them, all the members of that group. Excellent work. Just really enjoying to see your research. But anyway, we've been talking with them a lot, and um, some of the members of that group uh, are interested in participating in a Bigfoot or actually more of a it's a cryptid roundtable podcast. And of course, I'm hoping you and Vincent will be with us on that. I hope will you be on this one?
I should be, yes.
I hope so. I hope so.
I'll try to make
Because
time for it.
because you don't want to miss this. You know why?
Why?
You know why? Thank
Why?
you for asking. Thank you, Greg, for asking. Because not only are we going to have the awesome people from the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade, but we are also going to have returning two celebrity special guests, researchers. Ron Moorhead and Stan Gordon will be with us as well. So
Excellent.
yeah, it's going to be really exciting. And uh, Johnny Two Bear and Angie, if you're out there, if you're listening, I really hope that you guys get to make it for that, and I hope we get to do it sometime towards the end of April or maybe sometime in May. But anyway, that's what we got, and also another big announcement. Before that, Kathleen Martin is going to be on the program. She's coming back and we're going to talk about her new book on March the 3rd. And then sometime between then and our cryptid roundtable podcast, we're going to have a very special guest, one of the most important UFO sightings of all time, in my opinion. The Reynolds Forest UFO incident occurred back in the year 1980, and it occurred. I think it was 1980. I think it was in December, I believe it was. And anyway, one of the people involved with it was Sergeant Jim Peniston. Sergeant Jim Peniston was a tech sergeant, or I think he was an E5 or E6 at the time. I want to say E5. But anyway, he was stationed at the two Royal Air Force RAF Bitwaters and RAF Woodbridge. And he was a security forces personnel. And for those of you who aren't familiar with security forces, they are the military's elite military police unit. They're in the Air Force. They wear a distinctive blue beret. They're very well trained individuals. I actually had the liberty and privilege to train with them at Lackland Air Force Base many years ago, or not Lackland, Camp Bullis, which is near Lackland. But anyway, Sergeant Jim Peniston of the infamous Reynolds Forest UFO incident will be here with us on Project Stargate sometime in probably the second or third week in March. We'll have further details pretty soon on that.
Excellent.
But anyway, at any rate, it's going to be an exciting episode. Really looking forward to that, man. But at any rate, how are things going with your research?
Somewhat slow, but we're getting there. I've really started to get a very strong interest in ghost ships after doing my research on the Mary Celeste. And apart from that, just trying to look into Mystery Hill. We've spoken about that a few times.
That's cool, man. I can't wait to see what all you come up with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, Greg, I know you've been looking into some places. Which one place that you brought up you've been researching haunted locations. That's something you've been really interested in, especially the historical ones. And one of them that's came up, and I think there's something that I'd like to talk about, is Sloss Furnaces in Birmingham. It's a big concert venue where a lot of bands have actually came out and played. But at any rate, tell me what you know about that fascinating place.
Not a whole lot. I remember watching it on the show Ghost Adventures. The team actually goes in the Sloss Mills and they do their own EVP sessions there. But it looks like a very ominous looking place, even in daylight, I'll say. But I never been in that part of the country. It's in Alabama, correct?
Birmingham. Yeah, it's in Southside Birmingham, actually.
Southside, but yeah, you lived around that place. Could you tell me a little bit about that place?
Well, the only thing I know about when I grew up, I spent my whole teenage life in Birmingham, Alabama. I spent, I think, from 1990 through 1999. So basically my whole teenage life there. And when I was growing up, I didn't really hear a lot about that kind of stuff. I had my own issues I was dealing with at the time, actually, but I never really heard anything about Sloss Furnaces being haunted. But it was known back in the day as a really popular venue, a concert venue. You know, band. I've heard of. I think Slayer played there a lot, and there's a lot of bands. But supposedly that place is really haunted.
Yeah, I've heard about that. But even then, I think it was started in like the late 1800s, and I think it closed in the early 1970s. But I wouldn't be surprised because there's a lot of deaths in places like that, really poor working conditions, people getting crushed by heavy machinery, stuff like that.
Ouch.
Yeah. We actually have a mill over in Dover, the Cocheco Mills. Mostly it was all female workers, and there was a high number of people getting their hands crushed or cut with machinery.
So it was all women that worked there?
Yes, and that's actually a haunted location as well.
Chicks. Just kidding. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah, that mill had burnt. I think the early 20th century. I was looking into it a while back, but it's been a while. But yeah, they had a fire there. A few female workers had perished in the fire, and supposedly there's some poltergeist activity in that area.
I wonder if the poltergeist activity is brought on by like certain people that are like Dr. Taft called like a sort of an amplifier or a telekinetic, a PK amplifier, biological. I call them biological telekinetic amplifiers. That's the term I like to use. But Barry had this really cool way of putting it too. I'll have to get back to you on that one. But at any rate, that's some cool stuff, man. I'm looking forward to the day when we can all get together. I know you're way up in New Hampshire. I'm down here in Georgia. But one of these days we're gonna get together on location, document everything, do a baseline investigation, and learn all about the history of the area. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm thinking Point Pleasant or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the Mothman territory.
That is correct, my friend. Been talking to this guy named Steve Ward. He's really big into the whole Mothman thing, and friends with him on Facebook and social media. He's got his own show. You can find it on YouTube. Definitely check that out. Really good stuff, man. But at any rate, I want to right now, before we talk about our guest and bring him on, I want to talk about my Aunt Cuppie. I am dedicating, Greg. I am dedicating this podcast to my Aunt Cuppie. My wife's smiling at me right now. I think I just made some brownie points with the wifey. Anyway, Aunt Cuppie, she lives in Mississippi. She's had a Sasquatch encounter herself. At least she truly believes she did. I think something happened for sure, but she's had an interesting and kind of creepy possible Sasquatch encounter in the Pine Belt of Mississippi near Natchez, and that's kind of my old stomping grounds. But at any rate, I want to give a shout out to Aunt Cuppie from your favorite nephew. That'd be me. At any rate, Cuppie, we're glad you listen, and we love you, and thank you for listening, Cuppie. But anyway, just now that we have that out of the way, let's get to our guest. Let's talk about our guest. Our guest is John Pearson tonight. John Pearson is a member of the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade, and he's very interested in Sasquatch and Bigfoot, and he's got some very interesting stories to tell for sure. I'm really excited about him coming on the program. But without further ado, what do you say we try bring him on? You ready for that, Greg?
Oh yeah. Just waiting for the drum roll.
All right, here we go. Let's get John in here. There we go. But anyway, this is going to be an interesting conversation. This is going to be a really interesting conversation. I can't wait for this. Let's see if we can get him on. John Pearson.
Hold on, wait.
Hey, how's it going, man?
What's going on, bud? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. You're here with Mark and Greg on Project Stargate. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
You better not deserve, my friend. Better not deserve. This is so you've met my partner Greg, and we are interested in having you tell us about your experiences with Bigfoot and some other things possibly. But before we kind of get into that, can you tell us why you got into this field research and what prompted you to get out there and want to look for Sasquatch?
More just hearing I've had a few encounters, and I've seen them, and just, to be honest, the amount of people out looking and nobody's, other than a few people, have brought anything decent to the table. That's kind of what intrigued me, was why is everybody failing so much at getting any kind of things about it. And then, in all of that, I've looked and seen, or I found, Melba Ketchum's Genome Project, and I mean, it's kind of a open and shut case at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How did you meet the gang at the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade? Tell us a little bit about that.
I met them all on Facebook, just interactions in other forums on Facebook, other groups, and it just evolved from there.
Nice. How many times have you had the opportunity to go out in the field with them yet?
Actually not this weekend, but the following weekend. So in, I think, roughly about 8-10 days.
Oh, wow. Okay. So tell us about your, did your experiences, encounters with Sasquatch, did it begin in your childhood? How did that get started?
Actually, around 8 or 9 years old. Been 1990. So yeah, I'd have been 8 years old. We had, me and a cousin were camping just in a tent. I mean, right in the edge of the woods at my Meemaw and Pa's property, and we had one walk around our tent, and we thought, as we saw shadow, and we didn't really think anything of it. We just thought it was my pa or one of my uncles or one of his uncles coming down, and just a look-see. And, we told everybody the next morning what had happened, and everybody kind of looked at us like we were all crazy. And, so from then on, it was like, okay, we weren't, I was 8, but I wasn't an idiot. I could see that everybody that was an adult sitting at that table when we said what we said looked around and was like, so we knew something was up. And just over the years being in the woods, and I've had the mind speak as a child. I've heard clearly in my head, run. And it was 3 or 4 of us building a fort in the woods, and all of us kind of looked at each other and took off running simultaneously. So I've had rocks thrown at me fishing in North Georgia. I've seen one. I know I've seen one. I believe I've seen two, but I know I've seen one. My wife's had encounters. So after, I guess, so many times of having weird things happen to you or things that shouldn't be happening to you, you kind of start digging into what these things could be, and it all just kept leading back to the big fella.
Right.
Right. I want to get into maybe in our next segment. I'd like to talk to you and get your input on what we might be dealing with possibly. But before we do that, I'd like to talk to you. Can you lay some of these experiences out and give us a little bit of insider information on the specifics of these encounters you had? At least a few of them.
The one that I know I saw one. We were at the base of Mount Hood back in October, actually. And me and my wife had just checked into our cabin. I say just checked in. We were there. We'd been there about 24 hours, and we decided to grill out. And I'm on the back porch, and I'm real big on my gut, and everybody knows when somebody's staring at. Like if you've got that intuition, and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm being looked at. And I just started getting that vibe. And so looking around and everything, I found him sitting in the V of a tree. This is about all I saw, about where my head is positioned.
Right.
And now, he was roughly about 60 yards away, but the head was the size of a beach ball.
Big.
It was absolutely out of place.
Now, would you say it was proportionate? If their head is the size of a beach ball,
all I saw was this much of it. Okay. All I saw was from about chin up. All I could see was the head.
I understand.
Where he was standing in the V of the tree with the bush in front of it, that bush was probably 6.5, 7 foot tall, easily.
Wow.
So I would go out on a limb and say, put this guy somewhere in the 7.5, 8 foot range. And just the head is what kept throwing me off. And occasionally you would see this. And I feel like it was, how you lock your knees and you have to kind of let one go and it kind of pulls you to the side and you let the other one go. Yeah. I think that's just occasionally. And he was there for a solid 3 or 4 minutes, but I kept looking away and would look back and he was still there. Kept looking away, I'd look back and he was still there. And I said, I'm going to look one more time, and if he's there, I'm going to go get my wife. And sure enough, it made me look like I was a crazy person because I was like, oh, you got to come here and do this. And
I look like a crazy person every day to my wife, so it's all good, brother.
She married me, so it's her problem now.
She said I do, right?
Yeah, right. So I took a picture of it and I couldn't get my phone to just the lighting. I'm in Oregon, middle of October. It's not sunny at all, dreary. So it just lighting. I couldn't get I tried to get a solid picture of it, and I couldn't get enough. I could get a picture clearly of it, but I couldn't get zoomed in without it pixelating enough that I could be like, all right, here you go. There's so many of the blob squatches and the fuzzy squatches in the pictures. It's just, I don't want to be that guy. But that's the visual I've had. And then fishing in Helen, Georgia, I go up there a lot and go fishing, and acorns don't fly, 90 degrees. They don't come out of trees at 90 degrees. Rocks don't arc over your shoulder and into the water. I've been screamed at. Wow. My wife, the first time she ever heard one, we were actually in Unicoi State Park.
I've been to Unicoi Gap. I know where Unicoi is. I've hiked AT through there with my dad couple times.
Yeah, we were actually down in the overflow section down by the lake, and we were tent camping, and it's, I don't know, 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and me and my wife had just, got ready, just getting relaxed finally, and my son went up, go to the bathroom, and when we came back in the tent, I heard crack, 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 and my wife just looked at me, and I was like, "You heard that too?" She said, "Is that?" And I was, it's 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, honey. No, there's people walking around in the woods up here right now. I mean, and it's hard for a lot of people to take in and swallow that initial hearing something like that. But she was real quick to zip the fly up on the tent, and everybody needs to go to bed. And like, that's maybe that tent. Go ahead, shut it if you want to, but that's not going to do anything.
No.
So,
Wow.
I mean, it's just a lot of stuff like that has happened. We were growled at in Yellowstone. Almost. I've heard a bear growl and a bear kind of do their little roar thing. This was guttural. Like I've never heard anything growl like this.
I can imagine. I've heard David Pilates talking about, mentioned Yellowstone a decent amount in his Can-Am missing 411 research. Very interesting you mentioned that, because I do see a pattern, and maybe we can get into this a little bit more later in our next segment, John. But it seems like that a lot of these area Bigfoot hotspots, for as I call them, also a lot of them do seem to correlate with cluster areas and David Pilates' research. But I find that kind of interesting.
And if you look at a lot of those cluster areas, they're national parks.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, like Yellowstone, Yosemite.
Yosemite is a big one.
And I mean, have you ever been to Yosemite?
I have not. I haven't been to Yosemite.
It's relative. It's creepy. I won't even lie to you. It's so old. Everything is so old there, and I guess just hearing all the missing 411. I've heard a few park rangers come out of there telling stories about stuff. It just, I mean, some of these places, the Great Smoky Mountains, there's tons of people that go missing up there all the time. I mean, there's a correlation with Dave's, the national parks, and I mean, and Dave's on it, and he knows what he's looking at. And I mean, there's a correlation with everything that's going on. Sasquatch, national parks, missing 411. I mean, even orbs and UFOs are starting to get brought into this.
Excuse me. Yeah, he's very qualified, and not to mention not only all that. I think he became a MUFON investigator sometime several years ago, I think, at one point. And then before that, he went off with a Native American First Nation tribe to learn about Sasquatch from the people who probably know about it more than anyone. Mm-hmm. I just find his work fascinating. But at any rate, I'd like to hear more. Maybe next segment. In Yosemite, when we can talk a little bit more about your experience. I'd like to hear more about Yellowstone, what you know about Yellowstone and Yosemite and places like that. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that in our next segment if you're okay with it. Sure. But I want to get a little Q&A in here with me and my partner Greg, if you don't mind, before we go to break. Greg, I'll let you go first, brother.
Thanks. I've had a few conversations with a coworker of mine who is just fascinated with Sasquatch. And one of the things that does pop up, and we've had this discussion with Johnny Two Bear, was the throwing of rocks. And that intrigues me because I'm wondering if that's like sort of like a warning to anyone, this is my territory, stay away from it. For a type of creature that's 7 foot tall and probably 400, 500 pounds of muscle that could rip you in half.
Here's my argument.
Okay.
I feel like these are more, especially when they're, little pea-sized pebbles.
Yeah.
I truly think some of these are younger Sasquatch, honing skills maybe. I mean, Johnny Two Bears and Angie and all of them, they were just doing something over the weekend that they had a farmer, a guy down there, had a 40-pound rock thrown at him.
Dang.
Damn.
40 pounds?
I mean, he's holding a picture of this rock, and it's every bit of that big.
Wow.
And so I don't think that, I feel like if they wanted to, I think it's more messing with us. I think it's just to let you know that we're here.
Right.
Even though I'm throwing things at you, you can't see me. You can't find me. I really, truly feel some of this stuff is a game to them.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense, John.
I mean, they outclass us in the woods by leaps and bounds. I mean, so all of these people that have had nasty encounters with them and come out of the woods and are just absolutely scared to death of them. I mean, they've got all the right in the world to be scared, but if he wanted you dead, you'd be dead.
Right.
I mean, there's no getting around it. I mean, a mountain lion doesn't come out and roar at you and then turn around and walk away.
Right.
Right.
He wants you dead. If this guy, if one comes out and yells at you, or he's throwing rocks at you to get you to leave, just leave. I mean, because
I would.
Yeah, I mean, when I had pebbles thrown over at me, I reached down, grabbed my backpack, threw it up over my shoulder, and went hiking on up the road some. I mean, it's kind of like you I guess you stepped into their yard, and it's the old grumpy man, get off my lawn,
right,
kind of thing. None of us really know. Everybody can sit here and speculate. And until we can have a conversation with one that can be translated to, hey, what are you guys really doing about this? And they tell us, we're all just playing a guessing game.
Right.
Good question, Greg.
Thank you.
So I got a comment. So I thought I heard, if I heard you correctly earlier when we brought you on, John, you said something about mind games or maybe some sort of mental telepathy. Did you have any of those kinds of experiences with Sasquatch?
I mean, people in the woods,
it happens a lot in the woods, just out of the blue.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not a voice. It's just you. I don't know how to describe it. It's not like, when you have a conversation with yourself, you can kind of hear the voice in your head.
Right.
It's just something in us. I mean, as a child, it happened 2 or 3 times, but it was just run. And we did. That was just it. I mean, it's almost like it hit 3 or 4 of us at the same time on occasions. And we'd all just kind of look at each other and break. And we were gone.
Wow.
I mean, we'd all go back into the woods later that week or whatever, but I don't know. It's just, I've never had the mind speak that people, where they claim to have had conversations with them. My head's messed up as it is. I don't need anybody else in there. So I tend to not open myself up like that when I'm in the woods.
Right.
I stay shut down, kind of mentally. My head's on a swivel, but I try and just keep it to where, in a situation like that, I don't want somebody like that in my head. I'm not down with that yet.
Especially at the end of the day, when we really have no idea what we're dealing with. We're not 100% certain.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this is, Dr. Melville Ketchum thinks these are the Nephilim of the Bible. Well, if they're the Nephilim of the Bible, I mean, they're not, those weren't very nice creatures. They were doing everything they could to.
No, they were not.
So, I don't believe they're the benevolent, forest giants, and every one of them are lovey-dovey. I'm scientific. I'll look at Melville Ketchum's review and saw it, read it, and I believe these creatures have stayed, in touch with themselves, not got drawn into the industrial age and weapons and having to have, they've had to rely on other things, and I think they're just steps ahead of us in the natural progression of things, and I feel like we're lagging behind with all the technology.
It's an interesting hypothesis and theory. I think this is a good point to go to break, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about these metaphysical properties of the Sasquatch encounter with you. And also, maybe I want to talk a little bit about Yosemite and Yellowstone, and I'd like dive a little bit into David Pilotti's research together a little bit if you'd like. And anything else you want to talk about? This is a special podcast interview for Aunt Cuppie with John Pearson. You're listening to Project Stargate. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to Project Stargate. We're here with our special guest, John Pearson. John, welcome back. Thank you for being with us again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Greg, also welcome back to you, my brother. I think that this has been a fascinating conversation. You seem to have had, as we were kind of talking a few minutes ago before we started this segment, you've kind of had the hallmarks of most of the hallmarks, it seems, of the Bigfoot experience. You've had the what I call, this is just my term, okay? This isn't what it's supposed to be called, but I call it a backwoods poltergeist. But I think it's pretty obvious that Bigfoot probably has something to do with it. But I've heard it called that before. And then you've heard the noises, the sounds that the creatures make. So this is going to be a very interesting podcast that I promised my dear Aunt Cuppie and for our listeners as well. But moving forward, I want to talk about the metaphysical aspects of Bigfoot. John Moorhead has written his book, Quantum Bigfoot. If you haven't read it, and also for you listeners out there who are really interested in Bigfoot, please check out Ron Moorhead's book, Quantum Bigfoot. It is an amazing read and a very eye-opening point of view on the Bigfoot phenomenon. So check that out, please. But John, tell us what. I'd like to hear your take on these aspects of Bigfoot, the more of the exotic and even paranormal possibilities with Bigfoot, and why we have reason to believe those.
People. I don't really know how to. The orbs are one of the things that come with Sasquatch a lot. I've heard stories of a gentleman seeing a Sasquatch that had 3 orbs that stayed right in its chest. There's constant talk of mind speak is what they call it in the Sasquatch world. I would just call it telepathy. They're almost Professor X in your head. The infrasound thing. I don't know how much I buy into it being infrasound.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit, please, for our listeners?
On infrasound?
Yes, please.
It's below 20 hertz. It's very low frequency sound waves. Tigers use it. Elephants use it. And they use tigers use it as a form of, and it freezes animals. It can, if weaponized, makes people sick, makes them nauseous. But you see some of these videos of where, like, on Discovery, or not, I don't know if it was Discovering Bigfoot, but some of the Discovery Channel things where just the person that's being filmed is being inundated with, quote, infrasound. It doesn't work that way. The cameraman would be messed up as well. They can't control it. And if it is, they can't control it. If they can control it, their brains and things are wired much different than ours. So I'm not sure how much infrasound it is, or if it's not I'm not sure about infrasound. With it being just one person, infrasound can be labeled. But some of these documentary shows where the cameraman that's recording said gentleman or the researcher is perfectly fine, but the researcher's falling out, throwing up. I mean, when you see it weaponized, it hits everybody in its path. It's a sound wave. You can't really control it once it leaves the device that's making said sound wave.
So it's basically weaponized sound is what you're getting at, and it's something that could be harnessed. I've heard I'm an Army veteran, and there is weaponizing applications for sound. I know that.
Oh, absolutely. It's crowd control. I mean, and it just makes people nauseous. It gives them headaches. And I mean, you could, the roar of a lion can do something very similar to it. The roar of a tiger. Well, the roar of a tiger. Let me retract the lion. The roar of a tiger. But that's when they find the most infrasound out of a tiger, is that roar. I think the screams that Sasquatch inundates is where the infrasound comes from. Those people that get screamed at and they lock up. I mean, it's known to make you soil yourself.
I bet.
Plenty of people that have said, I saw one that screamed at me and I peed myself. That would be a form of the infrasound.
Something, I just want to interject something. I know this is kind of a pop culture reference here, but I have never seen, it just dawned on me, I have never seen Harry and the Hendersons.
Oh, that's my favorite Sasquatch movie.
I have never seen it, brother. And I'm sorry I had to interrupt that because I love what. Please continue and forgive the interruption.
No, you're good. So I feel like the ones where, if that's really what's going on, I don't think that's so much infrasound. I think that is something else. I think that is something in their brains, their mind, they're able to project. Because, I mean, everybody gets scared. If you've ever been scared bad enough, it'll make you nauseous. It'll give you headaches. Fear causes a lot of things. So, I'm not buying the multiple people in an area and only one person's getting hit with it. That's something else. That's not the way sound is.
So, because if that was happening, I'm just using common sense here, John. I'm not an expert. I don't know as much about it as you do. Okay, but common sense dictates to me that the only way that could possibly happen is through some sort of technology where it would be directed at a specific target in a very small area group.
Correct. I mean, you would have to it would have to be almost funneled.
Right.
It would have to be line of sight.
Kind of like a shot group when you're at a range and you're taking shots down range with a rifle. It's kind of like a shot group, I guess. Kind of maybe it's something like that.
I mean, it's sound expands like a shotgun blast does.
Right.
I mean, it'll come out of a speaker in a small tube, but as it leaves the speaker, it, progresses out. That's why you're able to hear sound off to the side. Even with the speaker facing you, you can hear it way off that way. Sound comes out and it doesn't really, the only thing that stops it is something bouncing it back and forth or something absorbing it. So with it being infrasound, everybody around is going to be inundated with that feeling as well. So, I mean, I feel like that feeling that they're getting is more of something's looking at you and it's forcing those feelings on you. It's not a infrasound thing. If you look at how they weaponize infrasound, it's a big old. You ever seen the Edward Norton Hulk movie?
Greg,
Yes.
can you take that? Can you take this one? Have you seen the Edward Norton Hulk movie?
I have not seen it, unfortunately.
Because I haven't either. Actually, I think I've seen clips of it. I might have watched it. It was just years ago. So elaborate.
But they were using something sort of what infrasound would do to try and inundate him. But they had to clear everybody from it. Sound waves move. What a lot of these people are getting hit with, I don't believe is infrasound. I think infrasound is the best way for people to describe it. I think it's something besides that.
I sure wish Vince was here on this part of the conversation. I hate that our science advisor Vince would love to be in this conversation, especially at this point, because this is where he would come into play. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. So, but just orbs. I mean, people are reporting UFOs, portals. Scott Carpenter has videos of a portal opening up behind him. So these creatures are something far beyond just a descendant of Gigantopithecus or just your average monkey. They're not. They're beyond that.
I'll take this just a step further with the portal thing, if I may. Greg, and if you want to weigh on this, please do.
Sure.
But I was listening to a recent episode of David Pilotti's YouTube channel, and he was talking about he was reading his letters as he does, because I am a villager, by the way, and I definitely encourage all of our listeners to check out Can-Am Missing 411 on YouTube. And check out his free podcast show. It is wonderful. But he was reading a letter, and they were talking about portals, and there is top scientists from all around the world there's working on this. Maybe even in a weaponizing effort. Have you heard anything about that? And Greg, I'll start with you. Are you familiar with it? Have you caught wind of anything like that?
No, I have not.
What about you, John?
I mean, the only Nikola Tesla, not Elon Musk Tesla.
Right.
Well, the Tesla, he was working on it. And when he passed away and all of his stuff was done or confiscated, a lot of that information and stuff went away. I absolutely believe the portal thing is real. Scott Carpenter's video, I've thrown it up on, editing devices that I've got, editing software, and I can't find anything where that was CGI'd in. He did anything, to the video, and it's just, it's not, these things, it's real. And I have no idea. David Politis is always talking about people who are walking
right next to them,
and gone.
Yeah, it's like literally, it's almost as if they're phasing in of our space-time continuum. I'm not saying that's what's happening for certainly, but he does. I think he does right by not giving his opinion, but your guess is as good as mine, man.
I don't know. I know I don't know. I don't know what to say about all of these portals and stuff.
I don't either. And I don't think David knows what to say about it either.
Yeah, I mean, it's really beyond my science knowledge. So, I mean, I'm fascinated by it, but I mean, I feel like this is going to be into some quantum realm, I mean, almost Matrix type stuff.
Well, in the future, we're actually going to talk about these types of fringe science. We're kind of working on something with Vince for a future podcast. Talk with someone who is qualified to talk about this type of stuff. So I'll make sure to keep everybody in the loop as far as that goes. But yeah, Greg, you had something?
Oh yeah, I had a conversation with my friend and coworker Dana. We talk about Bigfoot from time to time, and that's the one thing he tends to mention the most is the fact that those that go in search of Bigfoot and they capture something on infrared and it tends to disappear at random. He thinks talking about like cloaking, kind of like from that film. Was it Predator? Kind of like that. Well, I was wondering, wondering if it's sort of like they're kind of like between this material plane and something else.
That's what it kind of looks like it's going towards that way, Greg. It kind of does.
It's really heavily sci-fi type stuff, but it's just like
they're saying that the hair almost acts as a almost like a reflection.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost see-through.
Right.
It's like you see they're able to bend the light around them. I mean, and if that's the case and they're able to bend the light around them, I mean, they're working on a different level than we are. We're behind.
See, we have that technology. They have cloaking. They have cloaks that a person can wear, or they're at least. I'm not sure how far along in development it is, or if they're finished developing it. But this does exist.
There's 2 videos on YouTube. There's a lady that's in a tree stand. I want to say she's either in Michigan or Wisconsin, but she films a predator-looking creature in a tree, just hanging out on the side of a tree, just looking at her. And you can clearly see it is like the movie The Predator. I mean, you can clearly see the almost translucent figure just standing on a tree, and it moves. I mean, it's the wildest thing. And there's a guy that he didn't even know that there was a Sasquatch in the background. But he's doing a video on cutting lumber, and you watch it run across the back. You can see snow kick up every step it takes, but you can't see it until it hits an angle of sunlight just right, and then you can see the reflection of it. But
does a lot of this kind of stuff go on in Yellowstone and Yosemite? Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I don't know how much of it goes on. I mean, I would suspect, that if it's happening here, it can happen anywhere. But there's definitely signs of them in Yellowstone. There's definitely signs of them in Yosemite, with Dave having as many missing people in Yellowstone, Yosemite. I mean, it's really easy to get turned around in those places.
But what specifically happens in those places like that, in these cluster areas? What all, as far as your knowledge goes, what all happens there? Because I've heard that coincidence. I don't think this is a coincidence that this area is also some of these areas are synonymous with other unexplained phenomenon. What's your take on all this, and what do you know about it?
I got family that is Native American, And a lot of the natives around there, I mean, have cursed those lands because of the white people coming in and taking them, or other tribes fighting over them, and they cursed them. I mean, so something definitely is weird going on in those areas. Even reading Dave's books, I mean, sometimes some of them point to Sasquatch. Some of them I'm like, yeah, that sounds like something took them. And then the people that just go vanish, poof, without a trace.
Well, see, my thing is I agree with David. Makes a good point, and I've heard him make this point a couple of times, actually, John. It's very unlikely to be a serial killer because this has been going on for so long, and whatever is happening is it's the same MO every time. It seems to be. You're walking along, and then you have someone next to you or behind you, and then they're gone. Next thing you know, and it's just where sometimes they're found miles and miles away, and just is Bigfoot responsible for some of this? Could it be?
There's one. I'll give the one that sticks out the most in my mind. A little boy up in North Carolina. Les Stroud actually tried to take and walk the route that he was found like less than 24 hours later, and it was like 18 miles away, and Les Stroud couldn't cover the ground at the time that he did it. And when they asked the little boy, a bear took care of me.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Wow.
Bear is going to take care of a child like it doesn't happen. Nature doesn't work that way. It's not. A bear's not one of those animals. They're opportunistic hunters. Black bears in the Appalachian Mountains, they're opportunistic. Any chance they get to get a meal, a 2-year-old would have been an easy meal. Sorry, I hate to be the bearer of bad news for the parents, but that would have been. I mean, that was a Sasquatch.
Yes.
Man, wow, that's chilling too. That's a very chilling story. I've heard I heard a story a while back about this gentleman in Canada, and he said he was taken for days by a group of Sasquatch, and he actually gave one of them, allegedly, he said he gave one of them a big can of snuff, and the Sasquatch ate the whole thing and got sick or whatever. But it's a really crazy story, but interesting nonetheless. Very interesting.
I mean, I've heard stories of guys being taken. Read Pinterest. Read Pinterest. There's a lot of stories on Pinterest that talk about Bigfoot and people being taken for 3 or 4 days at a time. One was put in where a lady was taken, and 2 years or a year later, the family's walking evidently on the same property. The girl was taken by the alpha and bore his child, and when she's whistling doing something and the family found her, Sasquatch came out of the woods. The family grabbed her and ran up the woods. Sasquatch killed the baby.
Man.
So it's some of the stuff they say about these things make me think, primitive man. But at the same time, a lot of things I read and see make me think there's something else. So I just try not to stay married to any idea.
Man. Well, as we announced earlier, later this year, we're going to have our roundtable Bigfoot discussion, and I'm really excited about that. Ron Moorhead and Stan Gordon, and it's going to be it's not going to really be so much just a Bigfoot. It's going to be really a roundtable cryptid discussion. and I'm really excited to hear all of them and all of our other guests weighing in on some bullet points that I'm going to moderate with, and I'm just real excited about that. That's going to happen later this year, hopefully in early May, late March, April sometime. At any rate, as far as cryptozoology goes, let's talk about that for a few minutes. In our initial conversation we had about a month ago, so 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think it was, we had talked a little. I remember you mentioning some things about Dogman. What's going on with that?
I mean, I've never seen one. Scott Carpenter has videos of one, and I kind of tend to believe Scott Carpenter. I don't see why he would, lie about it. He doesn't strike me as having the money to get a costume made. So I'm a firm believer in the Dogman. I've never seen it. I've never seen an alien, but I know we're not alone out there. So at this point in the game, I mean, who knows what's real? Who knows what's
not? Have you had a UFO sighting?
I have seen one.
Would you care to tell about it? Tell us what happened.
It's nothing it's nothing crazy. Me and my son were actually standing in the driveway. We've just gotten home, and we got out the car, and I thought it was a shooting star, and it went across the sky. And they usually burn out 2-3 seconds. I mean,
right.
Shoots don't last very long.
A lot of times they do.
Yeah, and this one just kept going and going, and me and him kind of looked at each other and turned back up, and it made a 90-degree turn and shot straight to the sky and disappeared. Wow. I mean, when you say 90-degree, abrupt 90-degree, just and shot up and disappeared.
Wow. Listen,
my 2-year-old threw me off the most with all of it, though, because the way he acted was so nonchalant about it. He just looked at me and was like, "Huh, I guess they are real," and walked in the house.
Wow.
All right.
That's a smart kid, man. A very smart kid. Wow.
We believe we're not alone on this planet. Definitely not.
I don't believe we are either. There's a lot of possibilities. There's suggestions of maybe possibly even an infinite amount of other dimensions, and there's other light spectrums, other vibrational frequencies that matter vibrates at differently, and I mean there's all kinds of possibilities.
I mean, Stephen Hawking believed that there were infinite universes. He was definitely on that multiple universe type scenario. I mean, so Stephen Hawking is a pretty smart fellow. So I'm on. I mean, if he's saying something like that is a possibility, and all of us normal people are thinking it's a possibility, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's more than likely a possibility. That and that may be where Sasquatch is able to come and go as he pleases. He's able to tap into that different realms, and that's how they're able to just vanish in plain sight.
Yeah, Stephen Hawking's really amazing, man. He did a lot of fascinating work. I think it was Stephen Hawking that said that if we were made contact with some sort of extraterrestrial biological entities, that they would probably be enslaving us or attacking us or something like that. That's what I heard. But at any rate, man, I tell you what, we got an exciting year coming up with. I can't wait to see all the great research that you guys are going to be up to in the Encounter Brigade. Where are they going next? What's their next big expedition? Do you know off the top of your head?
Angie, myself, a gentleman by the name of Derek, a guy named Homer, and a few other people are going down to Waycross next weekend, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and we're doing an expedition on one of the local rivers out in Brunswick. No, Blackshear. It's in Blackshear, Georgia. Johnny was just up in Augusta looking at all the videos he saw. He had some pretty good stuff. So we'll definitely see what goes on this weekend. This will be my first big expedition with multiple people. So I usually try and do everything by myself, and it usually works out a little bit better when you're by yourself. These guys are going to be going in. One guy's going to have a sidearm and a rifle on his back, and another guy's talking about taking a shotgun and a sidearm, and I feel like they know what that stuff is, and you're not going to get the reactions you're looking for. And I feel like this going in armed and looking for them causes you more problems. That's when you get the aggressive ones wanting to run you out. Come in, be benign, just do your thing. Come in, go to the woods, enjoy yourself, and then leave. Go home. I mean, it's kind of this, I guess I look at it as the same rules I'd want in my house. You're more than welcome to come in anytime you want to, get what you want, just respect my house, and when it's time to go, go. So.
Absolutely, man.
Sure.
Well, John, our time's coming to an end, man, and I've really enjoyed having you as a guest, and I appreciate you sharing your experiences and joining us in this. I've really enjoyed this fascinating conversation.
Yeah, man.
Definitely. I'll have you come back sometime, and maybe after your next one of your first expedition, maybe you can come back and we can talk about it if you'd like.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd love that. That sounds good, Greg.
Absolutely.
You're listening to Project Stargate Fringe Research. I'm your host, Mark Brenner. Thank you for listening.